Welcome to Lunch Dev, another episode of Lunch Dev. I'm Chantastic, and today we have Keith T. Elliott teaching us about how to think in React, or thinking in React. And he's got a lot of cool, he's got a drawing pad out, which is going to be unique for us. And I'm really excited to learn how to think in React. Keith, welcome, and take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Jan, and thanks everybody for joining. I am way up north, so just to start, just if you're curious, I'm always curious when I'm joining Zooms. Where in the world are folks? So I'm way up north in Alaska, and I have a son down in Southern California at the moment. Suddenly I'm old and I have a son at the house, and I've been, been digging in. I've been lurking in this community for many moons, but it really got plugged into the Redwood, I would say via the interview that Chan did with Tom, Preston Warner. I checked out Redwood, and it's a tool to create full stack apps. And I began to learn in public. Also, Swix encouraged that on an interview. So I'm kind of hook, line, and sinker. I've really jumped into this theme of plugging into community and developing in public or learning in public. If you want to, and so really the root of this chat began as a little show and tell on the Redwood, in the Redwood community. There's a thread on the discourse forums capturing my development journey, where I've been posting my progress. So essentially I geek out and I have little flashcards all the time. So I have a vision of a very simple app I called it Flip Again. It's not yet up and live, but it will be at some point. But what I've done so far is created and published about 5 videos, YouTube videos, and the rhythm is to do that weekly. And so what I've walked through, and my friends at Redwood have joked, we really like the thought of slow coding with Keith. They encourage me to take my time. I'm slow, I may be lean and I got a, clean cut look, but I'm slow. So it's kind of like slow coding with Keith. So in an hour, we're not going to get too far, but the theme is thinking in React. And let's just dig in. The thing that I want to do first and foremost is really create engaged discussion. So as a start, I'm going to ask y'all what this is. It might be a database. I'll give you a hint.
Dentures?
It's not. It could be dentures. Like that.
Looks like a cake.
There we go, Ben.
Also dentures.
And ever since high school Spanish, I've been saying my birthday in Spanish. And so today, 2 de marzo, I'm fully claiming as my JS B-Day, JavaScript birthday. So if you're like, last month we forgot our dog's birthday, and I don't know what dog's birthday is, but we declared it Valentine's Day. We put whipped cream on a dog biscuit and gave it to him. So if you don't quite know your JavaScript birthday, maybe you join me in claiming today as your JavaScript birthday. So let me ask. And this is my candle. I have one candle. I'm one. Basically, about a year ago, right around spring break time, I have kids, school-age kids, so I often mark things by spring break. I began asking, what's an arrow function? What's a package.json? What's npm? All these very rudimentary things. And so I've been in the weeds, and I've got one app that I use here at work. I work in an energy company to keep the lights on here. And so coding is not my day job. I do integrate an hour or 2 a day into my work. I have to create tools to do what I do, but it's not my core thing. So I'm one. But I'm curious, how about the folks in the mix? And shout out if you're texting, maybe Chan, if you could relay the text messages to me. So tell me your age.
Yeah, so I guess as people throw, like, if you don't feel comfortable just shouting it out, if you want to throw it in the text, I will relay it, or you can just shout it out here. I'm trying to figure mine out, Keith. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe it's tough to say.
31.
31?
31.
That's
I
for
don't think
me. Yeah,
Java-
31 for me.
Wait, 31
You've been coding-
JavaScript years?
I'm sorry, that was the question. I thought it was what's the actual? Oh, it was your age.
Oh.
I was,
Okay. I was gonna say you're like grandpa.
literal age.
No. So we're not literal. Your JavaScript. When did you begin JavaScript development? How many years ago?
A year and a half ago, probably.
Okay, cool. So you're right there with me. I'm on.
I think I might have started in 2004, so I'm like somewhere in like 15, maybe.
Major. That's awesome. That's awesome. Anyone else?
Ben says that his JavaScript age is 5 years, perhaps.
Good.
And then Jake is 3, coming up on 3,
Cool.
since 2018.
Cool. Right on. Well, I have to say as well, I mean, JavaScript years must be like dog years, right? So there's some multiplier effect. 7x at the standard dog year multiplier. Certainly in the year one for me, and I would say Anthony can relate. I've been drinking through the fire hose. It feels like I've learned a lot. So I really admire the old, these are JavaScript years. We can say old JavaScript years. I'm not a fan. So I admire the wisdom, and we're all somewhere along the path. And so really, what's been interesting now, I have been reading the docs, and I would say maybe a habit on your JavaScript birthday. And if today, maybe you read the docs on your JavaScript birthday. So let's go, everybody, follow along. We'll have a little read the docs along. We're not going to just read the docs together. We will browse them and we will inspect the code that I created along these lines. But my mindset is that, well, I'm assuming something. So let's assume that you don't know squat React. So let's just assume we don't know squat diddly. So it's a good place to start. And I found that as I stepped through this, so last night I had to pop into Costco and I had to wash the dishes, and I actually was reading the docs along the way, just kind of. And there's some things that pop out. React makes it painless to create interactive UIs. I would say in the last year, my experience was more characterized by pain, not painless. So I read that and I was like, that's the first sentence on the React docs. And so if you're new to the game, I think it's a bit deceptive. But just FYI, I'm not knocking it. I've realized what React makes easy, but what it can make hard is, well, it just introduces you to this whole thing we do, front-end development, app development. And it's a complex thing. It can be tough to get your head around. And oftentimes we'll start with, hello world. And that's where I began. I literally came here and just started pounding out hello world. And I took online classes and such, but nothing formal. But I would say ultimately I have read these docs like 5 times. Ultimately, I found my way to the bottom after reading everything at the beginning. And there's a neat statement here under the docs that I read last night. I was thinking, wow, this is my experience. So my experience has been many React users credit thinking in React as the moment React finally clicked. It's probably the oldest React walkthrough, but it's just as relevant. So that certainly was my experience. And I read that about a year after, just a month ago or so, about a year after I started hacking with React. And I wonder, is it because now I can actually read it and comprehend it? Or is it because it's just a different way to learn and maybe we should respect that people learn in different ways? So certainly, who knows? We're not here to theorize too much about education, but really a fundamental goal of mine is to help us teach those around us. I think being an accepting community part is being respectful of folks that are in this beautiful spot, this spot of being new, and so pointing them to, well, hello world is fine, but at the same time, this article, Thinking in React, I think is pretty awesome. And I'm not going to win any originality points. We will simply step through this. And the beauty of this here is, we're not going to write code just yet. We won't quite live code, but I will fire up GitHub and show you the code that I wrote. But we will start with mock. So grab again, I encourage you to grab a pen and a paper and let's draw. So step one in this article, I won't read it to you at least, is start with a mock. So and draw your app. And so us being us, or at least me being me, let's just start with the to-do app. To-dos. Maybe we have a title. Put box. We can save it. That's a button. And then once we have to-dos, list them. So we've got a bumptious 3-year-old dog. Walk. We've got a great house full of wonderful wife and 4 kiddos, and so I wash dishes. And try to find time to learn React. Who else? Anybody have a to-do for me? I've got space for one more.
Eat lunch.
Eat lunch. Cover the basics. Eat lunch. That's not one that we will forget. Okay, cool. So we have a list of to-dos. And maybe we can just each one we can mark done. We might say will be a button. Could remove it altogether. It's another button. And let's say that we have say up, we want to order them. That's enough arrow and down. Okay, so we are drawing, and these buttons we could repeat as well. So again, here in a bit, I think it'd be cool to have everybody pick up their mock. So step one, we're learning about React and we're drawing. What a wonderful thing. I mean, drawing is all a relative term in this case. Scribbling, maybe a better, very apt description. So that's step one. Create your mock, draw it. What are you going to do? And I have to say, I never did this. I'm kind of embarrassed to say I scribble on my whiteboard all the time. But when it came to creating an app, I did not do that. I can't believe it. I'm embarrassed. But let me ask this. I mean, you, my dear friends, when kicking off, say, a new feature or maybe you have a new app and just from the beginning, are you in the habit of starting on the whiteboard and drawing what it will look like? Anthony, how about you? I'll call some folks by name.
Yeah, so I don't, just because I'm not the type of person who's been a drawing person ever. It's kind of a thing that I'm very bad at and have never enjoyed it. It's never helped me think out things, so it's just not how my brain works.
Yeah, I hear you. But maybe I'd encourage you to try. I mean, and drawing is, this is call it the way I draw. This is not drawing. So my encouragement is maybe give it a whirl. Who else? Anyone else? Ben or Jake?
I have. I'll go real quick. I have. Let's see. Is my thing even on? Yeah. I'm holding it up to my camera right now, but I'm constantly like drawing little like figures and whatnot. These are. What is it? Like these were some ideas that I was playing with for like kind of how we could draw different like kind of event types for the events.lunch.dev page or whatever. So yeah, so little cards and stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm always drawing stuff for UI development. Here's our treehouse.
Cool. Good. Oh, I love it.
Like, meanwhile, I'm with Anthony. I don't really draw. I prefer to like prototype as much as possible, like with actual code and play around with it. That usually tends to be like my surface area for experimentation.
Okay, gotcha. I hear you, and that's cool. But nonetheless, I will still encourage you to grab a whiteboard pen or a marker and scribble. And namely, as we accept new folks, and if we have an opportunity to teach a newbie, maybe spending a couple hours on the whiteboard, maybe a good place to start. That's my pitch. I mean, again, pitch discussions about it. So the first step was draw this mock. So we have our simple mock, and then here's the data. In our to-dos, we'll simply have text. They'll need to know, we'll need a Boolean, is it done or not? And we'll probably give it an ID. So super simple. So we can think through text or the data. And then this is like my favorite part. First thing you'll do is draw boxes and give them names. I read that last night again, right? It's like my favorite sentence in all the docs. I can do that. I'm human. I can draw boxes and name names. I'm going to get my little box tool out. Switch to pencil. This is this fun little app I've started to use. So we will draw boxes around apps. So let's look at, in their example, they draw colored boxes around their app. And so here's the scoop. Again, assuming you don't know squat, React, here's step one. Sketch your app and draw boxes around components. So we'll draw boxes around every component. So the components, of course, are these reusable chunks of code or chunks of user interface. And we take data and we turn it into a chunk of user interface. And that's this beautiful thing that React does for us. And so the key question for somebody new to the game is what should my components be? What should I call them? And I think if we start there, for many folks, it's you can get to these quick aha moments more rapidly than starting, say, with Hello World. So we'll put a box around the yellow, say the main app. I did that in blue. And I'll change colors as well. What else? We have this new to-do input. I will color in red. Anybody have any suggestions? Feel free to jump in. I will also make a component for, say, the table as a whole. And what I'm thinking is, components, it's kind of like when I'm coding, I break complex things into little chunks. And then I keep breaking that bigger chunk into smaller chunks. And so components can have, we call it subcomponents, we call them in React children components. And so let's keep breaking down. So now we have two children, or peers rather, let's say the new to-do input, and then the list or table of to-dos. And then from there, we can, say, draw a box around a row, a table row. So maybe we have a table row component. And then even then, potentially we might need to break our to-do itself, depending on functionality. Like maybe we change color when it's marked complete. So maybe we want that in its own component. And if we're going all out, maybe we're popping the buttons in their own components too. And that's about it. I won't redraw these, but the same theme exists. So that's what we did. So we have our mock, and we drew boxes around the components, and we need to name them. So let's do it. Let's go. Let me pop back over to my marker, and we will name these guys. So we have, first of all, in React, we often have the base or root component. We'll call it to-do app. We have our root that encompasses the whole thing. Then we may have to-do input, which incorporates the input chunk. We have a table here, prefixing with the word to-do. Maybe you do that, maybe you don't, but I will for now. To-do table. And then we have, let's see, to-do items here. To-do item. And we have buttons, these guys. This is getting really sloppy. I like my real life whiteboards. Button, we'll have button, say done. I won't write out all these, but maybe we have button remove, and then button up, down. So this has become quite the scribbled mess, but nonetheless, I can get my head around this. In that we've got an app component, and we have a couple children directly under that, an input and a table, and in the table we have these rows, and in each row we have an item and buttons. Got it. So now we have our sketch, and then we can translate this into the less visual among us. Let me capture this guy. Screenshot. So here we go, and then I'll go ahead and zap that guy. And so what we'll do now is write it out in component or in a hierarchical format. So we'll start with our to-do app. And if you're following along and you want to twist on this, maybe take an app that you're developing today and start sketching this out for your app in particular. I know that we'll talk. I've got a little storyboard. One of the things I'd like to draw out is cool wipeout stories, and I've got a technical wipeout story that I'm working out right now, and in part of doing so and trying to figure it out, I'm creating this component hierarchy kind of after the fact, and that's cool too. So if you've never done it, maybe it's a good idea to do it now, even though you already have an app in production. And so we have to-do input as the first child, and then we have to-do table. And under that, we have to-do, to-do row. And then under the rows, we have items. I'm going to drop the prefix here. We'll just call it item, and then our buttons. Button done, etc. Cool. So this is our component hierarchy. Even our little app, our little to-do app, it starts to be pretty, it's filling a page. And so one of the things that, that we deal with is complexity creeps in so easily into this game that we play. And that's why I think, for me, what I've found is, if you happen to, invest 5 hours watching the videos where I walk through this in excruciating detail, you'll see that I reference the hierarchy quite routinely. I found this to be a great tool for me, just as I was hopping back and forth. Okay, cool. So we'll create a screenshot there too. And then finally, let's go dig into some code. Let's dig into some code. But first, again, in an attempt to not totally bore you with my basic code, I want to learn more about you. So can anyone tell me a hero they have? It can even be an unlikely. Who's up?
I'll jump in while people think of theirs. Immediately comes to mind is Sandy Metz. She's one of my developer heroes. She's an incredible programmer. I think one of my favorite things about her is that she kind of really tempers all engineering, kind of like that like Yagni, the you ain't gonna need it thing, by business constraints. And I've always loved the way that she bridges engineering and business. Her talks are incredible on that front. So she's definitely my developer hero.
Cool. Right on. Yeah, it's cool. I like that. Especially, it sounds like she's human. If she were here, she would probably engage with us. It's just like we're doing. And I appreciate that, we're all human. Cool.
Same.
Who else?
I know a lot of people here are fans, but Jason Langsdorff is someone who I definitely look up to and see him as someone who is like a huge proponent of just like getting out there into the community and teaching what he knows, but also being willing to like put himself in a position where he can say when he doesn't know, and he can, everyone can learn together through him. And that's, how he set up his whole show, which I think is awesome.
I agree. Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I agree. Again, he's showing his human side and helping folks along the way. The most I've learned about TypeScript has been with Jason in an hour with the gentleman that he had on talking TypeScript. Yeah, I agree. How about one more? Going once, going twice. All right. Are you excited to hear who my hero is?
Yes.
First, I will draw my hero. And we'll see if you can. He's got big hair. And he's got.
Bob Ross.
Oh, boy. Ben, you are awesome. The big hair. Is that what did it for you? And I am jealous.
Oh, yes. And also the fact that we've been having a conversation in the text channel that's like, Keith really reminds us of Bob Ross right now.
Happy little trees. Happy little trees. I mean, I do live among happy little trees, so I I have to tell you, I was practicing with my new Wacom panel. I was pleased that Mackie Appleton used one of these too, so I'm feeling pretty legit right now. But YouTube put Mr. Bob right in front of me on my YouTube channel, or YouTube recommends, and I fired it up, and like right at the beginning, he says, "Take your time, work at your own pace. Speed will come with practice." And I love it. So he's slow, and yeah, and I don't need any encouragement to be slow. But I'll take it. And that's my thing. So cool. Well, cool. All right. Well done, Ben. You get this started. This little sketch doesn't quite look like this. I've got a long way to go. But a beautiful win in my home is that my 10-year-old daughter, I turned her on to Bob, and so I have to watch Bob like every afternoon. And I love it. All right, so where were we? Let's dig into code. So if you go back to your web browser, and head over to GitHub. So I am, if you go to github.com/Keith T. Elliott, that's, you can catch me on Twitter and at GitHub at Keith T. Elliott. There's me and my wonderful wife. Okay, so my first contribution to the open source world is redwoodjs to do simple. So if you pop into there, you can follow along in the code with me. As I mentioned, I've latched on to Redwood, and I've created an app just to help you know that, well, to see the finished product, since we're going to run out of time pretty quick. This is my simple to-do app that's running on my local dev server here, localhost 8910, and I can mark my dog walk done. I can move up, study with again. I can remove items, and I can add a new to-do. So this is what this code does. You know, quite modest beginnings, but nonetheless, we're getting our head around what it's like to be brand new and to help new folks learn React. So we drew our sketch. Let's get back to where we are. So we drew our sketch, crazy scribbled sketch. We created the component hierarchy for it, and I will open that up real quick. Here it is. So let's go look at this code, the code associated with To-Do app. So let's go look at it. So first of all, we'll see where we put it in React. There's a concept, or excuse me, in Redwood, there's a concept of pages. I created a home page. And in that home page, here we go. Nice and basic. Here's my To-Do app. Wonderfully simple. So let's click it. And we'll follow along with GitHub and just work.
Whoa. Today I learned. I didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. I've got VS Code fired up, but I started doing this and I love it. Yeah. So pretty cool. And so here we go. This is our To-Do app component. But before we, let me divert us back again. Let's go back to the docs. We've created our component hierarchy, and step 2, build a static version in React. So build a static version. We will build our components that use other components, and we'll pass data using props. So again, I'm pretty sure we all live here know what props are and what state is, but if we're teaching folks that don't, it's not obvious. Just a month ago, I was taking my son to college and I had time. I spent like 3 hours studying up on state versus props. What's the difference? A brief interlude here. This was like a 3-hour interlude for me. So just, one of the things we tend to do, we humans, is forget what it's like to be new. And so this concept of state versus props can be something that can be hard to get your head around. And I propose that it matters because if you were to plot state, if this is a plot of state and this is a plot of, call it confusion, I would propose in my experience, guess which way this curve goes. I'm teaching or helping my daughter with curves and math. So has this been y'all's experience? As you add more state, the call it confusion level goes up. That's been my experience for sure. And in contrast, if we were to plot, say, props, the more props you add, it's pretty much, this has been my experience. Props can grow with not a lot of confusion growth at the same time. So anyway, that's been my experience. My wipeout story is, I overfetched. Well, all right, let me squeeze in a wipeout story. I'm overfetching project data. So I created an app for investment analysis for should we fix a pump or a generator type of thing. And so engineers will put project information, and I'm fetching everybody's projects, but I'm overfetching, and I hit a DynamoDB limit, and the whole app just quit. It just shut down in a heartbeat. And that was a month ago. I put a Band-Aid on it, but I'm a month in, and I still haven't fixed that silly bug, just because I'm way up here in this nosebleed section of complexity. And I'm really wishing I read the silly docs or at least comprehended them about a year ago. But that's okay. You know, we learn by doing, and that's a core thing. We learn by doing, and a lot of this becomes relevant the more that we do it. So that's my little wipeout story. Let me take a little rabbit trail and ask again, who's got a cool wipeout story? It doesn't have to be a technical wipeout story. It could be maybe it involves a bicycle or some kind of wheels, or walking, or swimming, skiing.
I got one.
Okay.
Can I tell it?
Please.
I actually wrote about this on chan.dev, so I'll link that too. So we were trying really hard to figure out how we could get down to one car, and we were exercising this by like just leaving one car parked and like just really forcing ourselves not to drive anywhere. And so I have this a little bit of like kind of that last mile problem where like I'm like we have public transportation, but like it's kind of far from most of the places we need to get on both ends. So I was like, you know what? I really want to get out to the coast today and like go climbing. And so the best tool that I could think of was like not my bike, because that was going to be too cumbersome, but like a skateboard. I was like, oh, I'll try a skateboard. I've never ridden a skateboard in my life.
No? Even in SoCal?
No.
Okay.
I did rollerblades, so I was like kind of like a rollerblader when I was young, and then never got into skateboards. I don't know. I'm not coordinated enough. I watched Chance the Dev in his skateboard videos, and I'm very envious. But but the only board that we had was like a penny board, and
all right.
I am like, I don't know, like I'm pushing 200 pounds, so like penny boards are not designed to support like a 200-pound person. Anyway, so I make it successfully to my destination. It's further than I thought. But then on the way back, I'm on this penny board. I'm on the coast, and I'm like, man, it's a beautiful day. This is amazing. I'm on a skateboard. Like I'm, 36, like looking to go. And then I hit this like crack, like right as I'm at like the apex of my enjoyment. I hit this crack, and I just go, I get sent off of this thing. Like I still have just like aches in my neck and back from the pain I endured. And so like I just get sent off this thing, like $5,000 worth of like, laptop and chargers and iPhones or whatever just come spilling off of me. And oh man, yeah. So that was a physical workout that I had. So
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. Yeah, we've all got wipeout stories. It's just part of the human condition. In fact, one of my teeth is fake because of a skateboard. I hate to say it. So
they're dangerous. They're dangerous.
Been there. Okay, so wipeouts, whether it's a pulling data out of the cloud bust or a real human pain wipeout, it happens. And all right, so let's get back to code. And so props versus state. That little diversion was due to this experience that props are pretty steady in terms of adding complexity, and state, the more state you have, the more complexity can grow. That's been my experience. And so the cool guidance here, I've become a bit of a snob, a JavaScript snob, because now I have this opinion. I look at my own code that I wrote a year ago, and I'm thinking, why in the world didn't I pass that as a prompt? That should be passed from above. But sometimes I pulled in information via state instead of a prompt. And so the guidance here is identify a minimal, let me back up. Build a static version in React using props. So let's do it. Let's look at the code. Pop back over to, and here we are. We're in our to-do component. So we're starting in our hierarchy. We're starting at the top, and we'll just step through the input component table, etc. All right, so here we are. The to-do component will accept, I mean, I have now added, this is the finished version, the modest finished version, but nonetheless, I use state now, but initially it was, I just have my data, my to-dos, which I added, I'll pop up to source. I created a little util, default to-dos. So this is it. This is my data that I pull in. Walk the dog, wash the dishes, etc. So it's an array of information. So in this case, I added the state with the completed version, but initially it was just, and to be sure right now, I've decided one of the things you have to do is you decide where to put the state. Where should the state live? And in this case, conceptually, I'm pulling the state in from wherever, maybe a persistent database somewhere, and then I plop it at the root of the database. And from there, though, I can send it as props throughout the app. And so let's pop back over here. Lost my way. All right, pop into the to-do app. And we've got our data, and we pass our data. So we have our to-do input. The to-do input the to-do input only takes new input. So there's no data passing to it. We have this theme as well. Data flows down. Maggie Appleton had this wonderful, and I would watch it, this wonderful potato example, the potato talk. In contrast, I have this concept of waterfalls. This is not a waterfall. So say this is a rock and water heading down. In Alaska, out my window here, in the summertime, little salmon, they swim upstream. And Maggie would be disappointed with my fish. The data generally is flowing this way. And then we have these little opportunities to send little bits up north, upstream via event handling. But we'll get there in the next 13 minutes. All right, so back to the code. The to-do input doesn't take any data down. It will handle a click. But the table accepts via props to-dos. And so let's pop into the table. And here we are in the table. It accepts as a prop to-dos. And this, again, if you're new to the game, this is object destructuring. This is the props object, and we're pulling out the to-dos from it. I do a quick error handling, some data quality handling or checking. And then I simply map over my to-dos, creating an unordered list of to-do rows, to-do table rows. So here we go. In our hierarchy, we were in our root, we popped into a table, and now we're down into the to-do row. So here it is in the code, to-do table row. We pass to it one to-do. And so we're taking our data, and it's not yet state, it's just a prop coming from on high and being passed down to the to-do table row. And we'll pop into that. And so here is our to-do table row. Again, at the top, in the props object, we destructure, we grab our to-do table row. We also have a couple other things, an item, index, and a to-do list length. A close cousin of props are calculated items. So in the prior call, I pass in the index, which is part of the map callback, and then the to-do list length, which I calculate or grab from the to-dos array length property. And that's important too, because if you can calculate it, don't save it as state. It's another thing. And then finally, here we are in our to-do table row, wherein I simply output the text. This is finally getting down to outputting this right here. And it looks like I didn't actually create this to-do item. I didn't pull that out. I always struggle with how, where am I being ridiculous in terms of my component creation? And if I have a one-line component, I do feel a little silly. So I didn't do that here. I always wrestle with this. Should I create a component to capture the this functionality? Like show a to-do text item, and then I need to mark it as complete, or show visually whether it's complete. So I often wrestle with that. And let me pop into this like toggle complete button. So we'll pop down one more. We're passing as data the to-do items. Again, no state exists yet. And so here in our button, now this gets a little extreme. Here's my one row of code button component, and it simply displays the button. It does pass an ID, and we'll say a couple things on the handlers, and we pass a handler in as well. But we get down to this. We've made our way all the way through the top of the component hierarchy from the app, in this case into the table, into the row, into an item, the items button. And that code looks like this. And although it may be just highlighting obvious things, walking through it in this fashion, for me, is just enlightening. Not just for this simple app, but for my production app that I have rolling that I'm debugging right now. This whole mentality, this whole mindset of thinking through how the data is flowing and what reasonably should be a prop or a calculated item, things just start clicking with me big time, and I'm able to conceptually get my head around an app and just be efficient. And I have to say, I cross country ski here in Alaska, and we can all find analogies, and maybe as we start winding down, I could ask, what's your best analogy for coding? And for me, it's downhill skiing is one thing, and we do some downhill skiing, but what really grows on me is actually uphill skiing. And to the non-locals among us, you're thinking, what are you doing? But it's just invigorating. And it's like swimming in that it's hard. Like brute force doesn't help. Your heart is like pounding out of your chest, but at the same time, you look like a fish out of water. I mean, it's so painful, but you have these magical moments. And I know, since we're all here and engaged in this coding discussion, you've had these magical moments, and maybe that's the part of the addiction. That's what we keep doing it for, is these times of like pure joy where we just want to keep going. And I have that while skiing after I've lived here a decade, but it's been only after a decade, and there's been so much pain along the way, but it's been kind of good pain. Anyway, that's my analogy. Who's got another coding analogy? What thing in life seems similar to coding, or say app development in
general? I would say, I don't know. I try, for React specifically, I like to think when I'm composing components or a layout, I was huge into Tetris when, through high school and middle school. So when I'm composing components, or I'm composing, just a layout in general, Tetris is definitely one of the things that come to mind if we're speaking analogies.
Yeah, for sure. And they kind of, these shapes start coming at you faster and faster over time. So the analogy works in many ways as well. And the complexity, you don't watch out, suddenly your Tetris, will just crater.
Yeah, and that's also something, it actually can kind of be related to state.
Sure.
So in terms of state, I've found a lot of places that I've used context API could actually be entirely replaced by, if you just compose your components a lot if you compose your components a little bit smarter, you
Mhm.
remove the need for context API because you're really just passing it down to that one level. If you have it basically from, I guess the example would be like a page. If you have composable components, you're really only just passing the props down one level instead of needing context API to kind of have, the multiple layer to prevent prop drilling. I probably explained that terribly, but that's
Well,
also
no,
another thing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And let me ask. I hate this. Well, I guess I don't hate it. But when you say prop drilling, what do you mean? What is prop drilling? And I don't ask.
Basically,
I actually don't know.
Prop drilling is basically so you have a parent component, and then when you're passing props to a child, and then when that child passes the same exact props to the next child.
Okay.
And then if you repeat that, basically, if I find myself passing props more than one level, I kind of sense a code smell.
Okay. Got it. Interesting. And so what was the alternative? So I guess appropriate component design is the solution to that code smell? Is that
Yeah. So I know a lot of people go to the context API if they want to like have state at the top level and passing it down, pretty much preventing it from passing it to a prop and that prop passing it to the next prop. They'll have it through one level and then just access the state directly through the context. But basically what I was saying, so instead of needing context in the first place, if you compose your components to kind of render within that parent, it allows you to pass the prop once directly to the child. So it kind of removes the need for both prop drilling and context. And for me, I learned that very visually. So it is hopefully, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I learned that very visually. So hopefully that makes sense.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
right on.
I have called that in the past composition over context. when trying to convince someone that context was not absolutely necessary in a certain case.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was my latest kind of breakthrough with React because I unintentionally, because when you don't know your children of components in advance, it's kind of hard to think about. Like when you're in development, it's super easy to kind of just keep introducing inheritance, which the whole thing behind thinking in React is composition over inheritance. So I know there was a time where I noticed that when you don't think of the child components that will be needed ahead of time, it's super easy to reach for just inheriting and then passing props, and then that kind of continues over and over again. And then so that's when the light bulb went off in my head when introducing refactoring into composition. Code readability and kind of state management got a lot simpler if you kind of just take one step back. And like I said, I think we ran into that because we didn't know in advance. We kind of were just developing, and so it kind of just happened that way. But if you know exactly kind of, if you take a little bit higher level thinking towards it at the beginning and compose them a little bit better, it can prevent a lot of the problems that people kind of run into with this stuff.
I think that's one fun thing, about having done this for a while. Like there was, so when I started in React, React didn't have a context API. Like Flux hadn't been the Flux pattern hadn't been invented yet. And so all we had was basically our app was like this gigantic 1,500 line single component. And it's it's funny kind of seeing how everything went, all these trends that got introduced. I'm not sure that that's more understandable or better than just the bigger component that actually has all of the state and whatnot. And so it's funny to have to learn these lessons and what spills kind of cause that learning to happen for you.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, I really appreciate the feedback. Honestly, who was talking? May I thank you by name?
Well, that was Michael G.
Oh, yeah,
Michael
sounds
G.
me.
Cool. Michael, thanks for chiming in. I couldn't have planned that better. Again, that's what I hope to draw out is different experience, different folks with different experience levels helping to just make things better. And honestly, I crave hearing more from you, Michael. I'm at a point, and just as we wrap, and just I think that the beauty of this hour is how it ended. We're able to draw out from you, Michael, who I just know you're further down the road and you have more insight than I have, and I just crave picking your brain. And so anyway, I would invite you to talk more about thinking in React from your perspective. I don't know if you joined us for the Thinking in React or the JavaScript birthday, but I assume you're older than one. I claim myself one today. And so anyway, wherever you are in that journey, I encourage you to pause on your birthday and brush up on the docs and maybe find somebody new and engage with them to talk through maybe at a high level. And hopefully we're a blessing to folks around us and creating cool things for the world that make it a better place. So we're right at an hour, so we should wrap. So let me thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed it. And it's been great to be a part of this community. One of the wins, I would say, is this community in and of itself. And everybody's got cool things they're doing, but just being a part of this community. And Chan for leading the charge, and Ben and everybody engaged. It's been a joy. So thanks for letting me be a part of it and for sharing your time with me this morning.
Keith, thank you so much for being here, helping us understand how to think in React. I think it was really cool to see specifically how you're tying that to Redwood. Taking a document that was created, I don't know, probably in like 2013, around that time, and then kind of making it new for what that looks like in React in 2021 is really awesome to see. So thank you for your time. For anyone who's tuning in on YouTube or wherever you see this later, I encourage you to check out future events on events.lunch.dev, where we post all those events like these, featuring awesome people like Keith. So check it out, and check us out on Discord, events.lunch.dev/Discord. I gotta get a short one of those. Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great day. Bye.